Welcome or welcome back. We are reaching our final plenary of this morning on female entrepreneurship, emerging Mediterranean. This is moderated by Yves de Lafont from Africa Link, who is hosting many African, European and Mediterranean personalities who will be sharing their experiences. Over to you, Yves, for the moderation of this great panel. I can see that Bertrand Badré is already here. Thank you, Samir. Good morning. So we're going to be talking about desire, about will, power, about courage, resilience, desire. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship and female entrepreneurship in particular. So for anyone who's even a bit familiar with our southern continent, female entrepreneurship is a permanent fact across the continent, and it's very important. There can be no lasting emergence without a dense, diverse, rich network of SMEs across the whole continent. The men and women of Africa are in command, and in particular, female entrepreneurs. Karima El Hakim, good morning. Good morning, Bertrand and all the others. So you are based in Cairo, and you have a long experience at first in an incubator, a funding and supporting body for startups, and you've recently joined Fori, which is a mobile payment company. So out of all the different projects you've monitored, managed, supported, what is the proportion of female-led projects? Thank you for this introduction. I'm so happy to be part of this event from Cairo. I wish I could have been here today, but given the circumstances, perhaps I hope we can do this again next year in person. So about the proportion of female entrepreneurs in Egypt's entrepreneurial landscape, we are still very far behind, with a very small proportion. However, we don't always talk about entrepreneurs who do not come from a privileged background. Many people consider that female entrepreneurship is startups, founders who raise funds worth millions of dollars to launch their digital apps, but we do not consider female entrepreneurs who work individually with corporations or companies like Fagrawi, who are trying to provide them with a job working from home. So I wanted to give you an overview of an initiative we conducted at Fagrawi. It's called Heya Fagrawi. It's called Women and Fagrawi. And so we worked with 400 women. They were trained as agents working for the POS point of sale of Fagrawi, enabling these women to start a business and become their own bosses. And to work in their communities, selling products from partners, from selling consumer goods. So we have lots of initiatives that come from businesses, investment funds that try to deliver inclusive projects. And this is not always reflected in the tech sector. So this was the first point I wanted to make. In terms of accelerators, incubators, investment funds, we will come back to this during this discussion, but I can tell you that they all have very specific mandates and agendas coming from the Egyptian government to provide incentives for these investment funds and for these incubators to incite them to support more women. So it can be in the form of grants for programs, grants from international bodies, or from the government itself, in order to incentivize these accelerators who are sometimes privately owned, to encourage them to take on a higher quota of women. Thank you. So Fagrawi has 30 million clients and has in 2020 it's raised 4.5 billion euros. So it's a true success. Isadora Gourdon, sorry. Yes, I won't be dancing for you. You are based locally. The AFD, the Digital Africa program. This is a program worth 130 million euros from the AFD, so quite a significant program. What I find interesting is not just the digital aspect, but also how you are promoting change across the economy. So same question. What's specifically feminine? What's the share of female entrepreneurs within these AFD programs, and in particular in Digital Africa? Digital Africa is worth 130 million euros to support the emergence of digital innovations, to support the real economy on the continent. Our intuition is that the digital is a lever of development and acceleration across the continent, and it can be a great source of inspiration for the continent and for the world in general. When we talk specifically about women and the digital economy, this is not just specific to Africa. Digital skills only account for a fifth of the specialists of the digital sector on the continent, whereas women are just as qualified as men in having access to these to the opportunities brought by the digital economy. So digital economy, I'll give you an example of the kind of actions we lead. We work on 3 angles: consolidating talent, seed funding for startups, and research and public policies, because startups evolve within an ecosystem and they need this ecosystem to be favorable in terms of the quality of research as well as regulatory frameworks. So when we focus on women and digital skills, our approach starts from opening our programs to men and women in equal numbers. So we have a deliberate approach, and because we can see that women do not tend to embrace technical and digital careers and tend to leave this to men. So we've launched a program with the German cooperation agency called Talent for Startup, and it supports startups in recruiting local talent, because a high proportion of businesses in Africa are today saying that they are struggling to find the right talents. So we worked with the startups in our network to identify the skills that they need. Then we work with DEPs, training bodies that deliver training programs, and we give grants to learners that we connect with our network of startups to ensure that they are more employable. So we want these bursaries to be allocated to men and women in equal numbers, and we have an active policy, a proactive policy to ensure that women get into data, machine learning jobs, and get into startups. So this is our first approach. Another thing that is very important to us when we talk about female entrepreneurship is to create vocations in women and to tackle beliefs by having role models of women who are successful in the tech sector and are just as legitimate as men. So in order to create vocations in young women and girls, of course we can see that we need to work from an early age. When you look at professions to do with science, engineering, maths, everything starts at primary school. You have to tell girls in school that maths and engineering is not just for boys. Then when you look at stats in master's degrees, the numbers are roughly equal. And then when you get to PhDs, and the balance suddenly disappears, and you have a much higher percentage of men who are opting for technical careers. So very concretely, we created a media called Resilient Digital Africa, where we provide a platform for female role models from the tech sector in Africa. So we allow them to become more visible. You'll see that there's lots of women on this platform who work in very technical jobs in the tech sector and who promote female leadership in these sectors. We also develop research incubators. So building bridges between women who work on very specific technical topics and entrepreneurial skills to allow these women to develop businesses and startups from their technical skills and knowledge. So to really connect academic excellence and research with startups and businesses. So it's really about unlocking vocations on every level. Thank you, Isadora. Bertrand Badré, are you here? Yes, you are. I'm not here for very long, unfortunately. I won't be here for very long because I'm having to leave in a few minutes. So Bertrand, you are a multifaceted man. You're doing a bit of everything. You've been in charge, one of the leaders of international finance and the international finance bodies. And you are also a business leader. You've moved into the private sector. You also wrote books about Can Finance Save the World? And the second tome is entitled Seriously. So it's quite an interesting mix. And I wanted to hear your feelings. We talked about what happens at the point where more men than women will continue their studies. In your current capacity, what are your thoughts on this situation, on this gap? Thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you. I, of course, would have preferred to be here in person. I'm working on my next book about female and male leadership. So I'm very interested in these questions. I think regarding this topic, we are at a turning point today. For a number of years, academic research, as I could see at the World Bank, has been promoting women is not just a good thing, but it's a smart thing. So we write about it in projects. We always include gender aspects. So this has been taken into account by the World Bank, And I think we are moving from that to the next stage. So it used to be about conversations between people who understand each other and consider this as obvious. We need to move to the stage where this is becoming real and is becoming embedded in the system. So just like we talk about the cost of carbon increasingly to embed climate issues into finance, similarly, we should embed diversity and equality issues into finance. So it shouldn't just be a statement of intention and a matter of personal belief, but it should become something solid. We are having all these debates about the extra financial. We have a taxonomy, and in a way, we should almost have a taxonomy that's dedicated to gender diversity. And for me, the debate we're having today with Emerging Valley is important because what's happening in Africa at the moment could also be a form of leapfrog. It's a term we use in the telecoms, but we could talk about a gender leapfrog. We shouldn't wait 50 years to see it happen in studies, in skills. The idea that humanity cannot walk on one leg. And beyond the ethical question, it's just a matter of wealth. We shouldn't give up on 50% of our intellectual, cultural, emotional wealth. So we are at a point of crystallization where this needs to go beyond our conversations to become natural. It might take another 10 to 15 years. We need the finance sector to look at how these questions can be embedded into our financial models, just like we are embedding carbon issues and the environment. We should think very seriously about how we integrate this question of the place of women and men in our societies. It can play a major part in performance and in development. Thank you. So could we say that women are men like the others? Well, if we say that, we should say that men are women like the others. Okay, so let's go. Let's take it a step at a time. Thank you, Bertrand, for this reminder. And for this reminder that we need to keep reality in mind. And thank you, Bertrand, for being with us and for taking part. Thank you. Enjoy your day, and thank you so much. Asma Bouzaidi, you are here in person. Are you here? Oh, we are having a problem with her connection. So I'm going to move on to Mariam Fagrawi, who's here with me. She's from Morocco. She has a very unique career. She founded Neoli, which is a crafts marketplace that started in Marrakesh and has now expanded to Fez. I invite you to visit the Neoli website. It's very well made. And its specificity is that she started off as a civil engineer and she worked in construction for a few years. And then for cultural reasons and because of the proximity of her city of Marrakesh, she began to work in the crafts sector. So what are your thoughts on the feminine share in crafts? There are associations of women that you support. Hello, thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here with you for this panel focusing on women and female entrepreneurship. Yes, my story is quite unusual. Before I started off as an entrepreneur, I was employed in a profession that very much remains masculine, even though I don't like this term. And this job taught me that you can really find your voice as a woman, and you can really transform perceptions, and also that you do not have to comply with the masculine model in your approach to management or strategy. On the contrary, you can value your female specificities to handle the greatest challenges. So I chose to move towards crafts and female or male craftspeople. But more particularly, I focus on female crafts. I grew up in the Medina of Marrakesh, so I was around these craftswomen. And I feel like it's my responsibility to pass on this message to them, that you can still be a woman and be an entrepreneur. You can always break down barriers, but sometimes you just need a bit of support. Sometimes you need a bit of help. In my case, I was very lucky to receive support. Of course, I was lucky to be able to study. Unlike many of these women, I studied engineering, but of course, we all need training. I had the opportunity of receiving training on financial aspects and management aspects, meaning that I'm now able to face a number of challenges as an entrepreneur. But what I'm trying to transmit to these women, I want to show them that together we can change things. Sometimes you just need this extra boost, and it is possible today to overperform men in all sorts of areas. Female entrepreneurship has always been around in many forms, and it's evolving a lot today. Thank you. We're talking about the very real economy. We're talking about the handicrafts of these men and women. Thank you, Mariam. I'm sorry you're stuck here now because there are no flights back to Morocco. So Mariam is here until the 31st of December. That's terrible, but we hope you're okay, and we hope you feel at home. Asma Bouzaidi, are you here? Are you online?
Je ne sais pas si vous m'entendez.
Voilà, maintenant.
I'm online. I hope you can hear me. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here with us from Tunis. Flat 6 Lab, that's an interesting name, is an incubator and a startup accelerator. You have supported over 100 companies, and so far you have invested $85 million into certain companies. You are also in Lebanon, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, and Jordan as well. You manage the Tunisian side of the business. I see that you talk a lot about female entrepreneurship in all of the work that you do. I've also written down that on your board of directors, out of 5 directors, there are 4 men. Could you tell us a little bit about how you feel about this evolution over time in regards with female entrepreneurship? Do you think you could tell us how you feel about that, please? Good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to be participating in this plenary session from Tunis. As you said, Flat 6 Lab is well, the name comes from the fact that the apartment we started up in was number 6 in the building. It's true that on the board of directors, women are not represented enough, but I can assure you that 90% of our workers are women. There are very few men on our staff, but this is actually it's very obvious to see that women are qualified and they have their place in companies. They can be part of decision-making processes, but the place of women in companies, in other companies in any case, it can actually be quite rare. At Flat 6 Labs, we do not really positively discriminate to women. We do not support women more than men. We support them equally, but that does not mean that we are not aware of this question. Not at all. We monitor statistics. How many women have come into our accelerator? How many women have we supported? How many women have we accelerated? So the first thing I have to say is that there are very few women, or there were very few women when we started up. They were not aware of what we do, but this is improving. We need to balance our pipeline, and we need to do so by making a lot of effort upstream. When I talk about upstream efforts, I mean things such as the roadshows that we do to target audiences, information sessions that we do, posts on social networks, which are becoming more and more targeted. We also monitor the applications that we receive from women, and we have seen that in the pitch decks and presentations that we receive are actually lower quality from women than from the entrepreneurs that we employ. So we lead information sessions to try to remediate and improve these shortcomings that we are seeing. We want to show entrepreneurs how they can build pitch decks, how they should be thinking about their business models, and so on and so forth. So all of these issues that we see with our own eyes are problems, they are challenges that inhibit women from being selected by investors. Roadshows, information sessions, as well as a program that we have implemented, which is regional. It's called Ebda'i. Ebda'i means start, conjugated in the feminine tense in Arabic. This is a regional project, which is a pre-acceleration scheme that targets women. It's all about trying to get women motivated about getting into business. We want to strengthen the skills of female entrepreneurs. We want to help them constitute and integrate communities and ecosystems. We want to fly the flag for female entrepreneurship. And we also want to integrate a digital technology component of what they're doing into their business models. Digital technology will help female entrepreneurs make more progress and make sure that their projects stand the test of time and have a real impact on the ecosystems. Our KPIs on female entrepreneurship are improving as well. Thank you so much, Asma. Just before we ask the final questions, I suggest that we play the video from the Minister of Education, Employment and Information of Mauritania. Could you please play the video? From Taleb Ould Sid Ahmed. What inspires you about female entrepreneurship? For those of you who have been able to visit Mauritania over the past 2 years, you will have surely seen the huge amount of new startups in our country. A lot of female entrepreneurs in Mauritania recently were part of a competition that helped them meet other male and female startups in the country. Female entrepreneurs are becoming more aware about entrepreneurship and leadership thanks to this kind of initiative. Administration and public institutions were not the only refuge for these kind of initiatives, so it's fantastic to have this kind of scheme and competition which is open internationally and applies international regulations, of course. Getting youth into employment is an essential part of our policies. It is an important part of mitigating the turbulence of ecosystems in Mauritania. We want to be developing strengths, skills, and autonomy. We are aiming to empower young entrepreneurs in Mauritania in an urban environment. Women are the most vulnerable group of entrepreneurs in Mauritania. We want to develop mechanisms to enable women to gain access to entrepreneurship with specific funds that have been implemented. Female entrepreneurship is a central pillar of Mauritanian business policies these days. Women are known as strong leaders, as innovators, as skilled leaders, as project leaders as well. So it's essential for us to invest in female entrepreneurs. Investing in female entrepreneurs is investing in society. It is also an effective tool of reducing unemployment in young people. And we have partnerships with financial institutions and foreign stakeholders who are helping us implement acceleration projects for female entrepreneurs. Let me just be clear, with no perspective for youth in Mauritania and Africa, there will be no stability of our countries in the future. This is absolutely undeniable. If we look to even 5, 6, 7 years ago and the revolutions that the Arab world had, we could see that it was the youth that was the real spearhead of these protests. They were complaining about exclusion. They weren't happy with the situation. They wanted to change the status quo. Africa wants to invest into its youth very much so. It wants to, well, as we can see, the demographic statistics will show us that in a very short space of time, there will be more young people than old people in Africa across the board. So this therefore means that it is a huge market sector that we should not marginalize, we should not ignore. We should be creating policies that specifically target youth employment and youth entrepreneurship. We need to allow them to speak. We need to give them the space to expand and develop. To sum up, it is crucial for governments to implement youth empowerment programs, to build and strengthen skills, to allow young people to express themselves. It is a major policy of Mauritania. Thank you so much. It was fantastic to have Mr. Taleb Ould Sid Ahmed, the Minister of Employment and Professional Insertion in Mauritania, talk to us through this video. Fantastic. Thank you very much. In your opinion, has the development of female entrepreneurship, and does it depend more on women educating their daughters? Is this a way of breaking down the barriers and making progress into the future? Just very quickly, because if we go over, I'll be told off. Isadora, would you like to answer this question? I'm afraid your microphone is not working. Okay, yes, it is working. Fantastic. So just in 1 minute, I just want to say that change would actually, for me, come through educating boys. We've talked about men and women, but for me, feminine values and male values need to be reevaluated. We need to get out of this mindset that science is for boys and women, and design is and clothing is for women. It's not about educating daughters, it's about educating our sons. If I could, if I may just say that to sum up the session, absolutely, it's not just about educating girls, it's really more for me about educating boys. Asma, are you still with us? Mariam, okay, don't worry, I can hear you. Fantastic. Just very, very quickly, because we don't have much time left. Absolutely, it's clearly a cultural aspect within households. Education and the choice of how to educate your children is something that needs to be worked on. It's not just about women and men that raise their children in such or such a way. I agree with what Isadora said. It's more about educating boys. So education is the key aspect. I would like to say that I absolutely agree with what has just been said. This reminds me of my model. I grew up with I was raised by a woman who took care of everything. So for me, it was obvious that I would be put into that position as well, that a woman should be the person at home taking care of everything, and therefore being an entrepreneur as well was very difficult for my parents to envisage. I agree with what Isadora said. It's more about educating men than women. Karima, very quickly, I'm just going to answer a little bit differently. We talked about culture and education. I think that we also need to change the criteria of investment in companies where there are not very many female entrepreneurs. We need to be investing in companies that are founded by women. Women who work in social commerce. We have seen this in investment programs. For example, Flat 6 Labs is a perfect example of this. And they invest in companies. The role that Flat 6 Labs has played in Egypt, we have not really spoken a lot about it, but for me it represents a real catalyst of the ecosystem. And very quickly, I would just like to say that the work that is done in Tunis is just as relevant for all of the surrounding areas. So thank you so much. Absolutely. The roles of men and women need to be reevaluated. So to conclude this session, we are going to play a video from Wilfried Dorego. He's an important partner of Emerging Valley. He's been leading a very interesting project that is very, very relevant to the subject of female entrepreneurship. Thank you, one and all. Good afternoon, everyone. I am very happy to be able to speak to you today and to have the opportunity of speaking alongside you, even if it's just through a video rather than being by your side. With BPI France I've been working with BPI France since September 2020. This debate has really highlighted the challenges that Africa is facing with in terms of entrepreneurship. Accelerating high potential startup companies between Africa and Europe is a unique and priority pathway for me. We have over 80 partners in this ecosystem with the CPA a lot across the region and with companies in the diaspora in domains such as investment, support, finance, insurance, guarantees, and innovation. We also lead training sessions and consulting activities that can be implemented throughout any business experience and pathway. The Africa Invest company has very many partners. This is a community which is mobilized and connected to networks. It communicates about partnerships, and it will be intervening at the digital community, which has over 14,000 companies, 2,000 investors, and 1,500 support structures between Europe and Africa. Africa and Europe, the relationships between Africa and Europe are being supported by ministers such as the Minister of Entrepreneurship in Ivory Coast to create a specified and streamlined experience between African startup companies and Europe. PAS Africa wants to help bring out the next emerging startups from Africa. This program embodies inspirational role models. This is a fantastic program that has been integrated into the PAS Africa project. Our mission is to support what is happening in priority neighborhoods. We want to coach and help and support and help
PAS Africa lors du nouveau sommet
at the new Afrique-Europe summit that is happening in Montpellier in 2022. We will be seeing the FDA and BPI, who will be there to mentor entrepreneurs of the new generation. I would like to thank BPI France, the FDA, who is a partner of PAS Africa, as well as all of the teams for their commitment and their work to make entrepreneurship a way forwards into the future. Thank you all very much for listening.